The knife hovered in the morning air. A father stood frozen on a lonely mountain, his hand trembling between obedience and unimaginable loss. Beside him, his son waited in silence. No army surrounded them. No witnesses recorded the moment. Only a man, a promise, and a command that seemed to destroy everything that promise had ever meant. For one tradition, the boy was Isaac. For another, he was Ishmael. That single question would echo across thousands of years, shaping the identity of billions of people. But the story did not begin on a mountain. It began with two women, one desperate prayer, and a family that would never be the same again. Few stories have influenced the course of civilization more profoundly than the story of Abraham and his two sons. Jews, Christians, and Muslims all call him their spiritual father. Yet within the same family lies one of history's deepest divisions, not simply over inheritance, but over covenant, identity, and destiny. To understand why the world still remembers these names, we have to return to a quiet camp in ancient Canaan, where an old man believed time had already closed every door. Abraham had received a promise unlike any other. God had told him that his descendants would become a great nation, more numerous than the stars overhead. But there was one impossible problem. He had no child. Years passed. The promise remained. His wife Sarah grew older, and every passing season made the promise seem less believable. In the ancient world, a family without an heir faced more than personal sorrow. It threatened the survival of everything they had built. Eventually, Sarah proposed a solution accepted by the customs of the time. Her Egyptian servant, Hagar, would bear a child on Abraham's behalf. It was not born from romance, it was born from desperation. Hagar conceived, and the child was named Ishmael. For 14 years, Ishmael was Abraham's only son. The long-awaited heir had finally arrived. One can only imagine the father's joy. Every lesson, every journey, every sacrifice was now shared with the boy who represented the future God had promised. But history was about to change again. Against every expectation, Sarah conceived. She was already far beyond the age when motherhood seemed possible. Yet she gave birth to a son. His name was Isaac. The impossible had happened twice. Abraham now had two sons, but only one covenant. What followed was not a political dispute. It was a family tragedy. The biblical account describes growing tension between Sarah and Hagar. Whether fueled by jealousy, fear, or concern for Isaac's future, the conflict became impossible to ignore. Sarah demanded something Abraham never wanted to hear. Send Hagar away. Send Ishmael away. The request devastated him. Ishmael was not merely Hagar's child. He was Abraham's firstborn. According to Genesis, Abraham was deeply distressed, but God instructed him to listen to Sarah, while also assuring him that Ishmael would become a great nation in his own right. At dawn, Abraham prepared food and water. No farewell ceremony. No public explanation. He placed the supplies on Hagar's shoulders. Then he watched as his son disappeared into the wilderness. For Abraham, it was a different kind of sacrifice. Not one ending in death, one ending in separation. The desert showed no mercy. The water eventually ran out. The sun became unbearable. Hagar placed Ishmael beneath a shrub and walked away, unable to watch him die. Then something unexpected happened. According to both the biblical and Islamic traditions, God heard. In Genesis, an angel called to Hagar, revealed a hidden well, and repeated the promise that Ishmael would become the father of a great nation. In Islamic tradition, that desperate search for water became one of the defining moments of faith. Hagar ran again and again between two hills until divine help arrived. Those same movements are still reenacted every year by millions of pilgrims during the Hajj. Neither mother nor son disappeared from history. Both traditions agree that Ishmael survived. Both agree he prospered. Both agree that God's blessing remained upon him. Yet the covenant followed another path. Isaac grew within Abraham's household. He became the child through whom the covenant would continue in the Hebrew scriptures. Years passed. Then came the command that no parent could have imagined. Take your son, offer him as a sacrifice. The Bible identifies that son as Isaac. The Quran tells the same story but never actually names him. Later, Islamic tradition overwhelmingly identified him as Ishmael. although early Muslim scholars debated the question for centuries. The identity of the son remains one of the most significant differences between the traditions. Yet something even deeper unites them. In both accounts, the central figure is Abraham, not because he desired sacrifice, because he trusted. The journey toward the mountain was slow. Every step carried unbearable weight. Every mile gave Abraham another opportunity to turn back. He never did. The biblical narrative describes Isaac carrying the wood. The Quran portrays the son willingly accepting God's command after Abraham shares the vision. Different details, the same unbearable tension. At the summit, everything narrowed into a single moment. The altar, the silence, the raised knife. Then, a voice. Stop. The sacrifice would not be completed. A ram was provided instead. The son lived. The father returned. The promise endured. For Jews, the binding of Isaac became one of the defining demonstrations of covenant and faithfulness. For Christians, it later acquired symbolic meaning, connected to sacrifice and redemption. For Muslims, the event became the foundation of Eid al-Adha, commemorating complete submission to God. But the mountain did not erase what had happened before it. Two sons still remained. Two lineages continued. In the biblical tradition, Isaac became the father of Jacob, later called Israel. From his descendants emerged the tribes of Israel and much of the narrative of the Hebrew Bible. In Islamic tradition, Ishmael became closely associated with the Arab peoples and, through later genealogy, the ancestry of the Prophet Muhammad. Islamic tradition also credits Abraham and Ishmael, together with raising the foundations of the Kaaba in Mecca as a sanctuary dedicated to the worship of one God. The remarkable truth is that neither scripture portrays Ishmael as rejected by God. Genesis records repeated promises that Ishmael would become a great nation. The Quran honors both Ishmael and Isaac as prophets blessed by God. The division was never presented as one son loved and the other abandoned. It was a distinction between blessing and covenant, between different roles within the same unfolding story. Even the end of Abraham's life contains a detail many people overlook. When he died, both sons came together, Isaac and Ishmael. Together they buried their father. For one brief moment, the brothers who had taken different roads stood side by side once more. No speeches survive, no record of reconciliation remains. Only that quiet image, two sons honoring the same father. Centuries later, kingdoms would rise, empires would fall, religions would spread across continents, wars would be fought, peace would be sought, and people would continue asking the same question that echoed from that lonely mountain. Who inherited the promise? The answer depends on which sacred tradition one follows. But perhaps the more enduring truth is this: before there were nations, before there were borders, before there were rival claims to covenant, there was a family struggling with faith, hope, jealousy, love, impossible choices, and the cost of trusting God when nothing made sense. That is why Abraham's story still refuses to fade, because behind one of history's greatest religious divides stands something profoundly human: a father who loved both of his sons and a promise that changed the world forever.